Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be breaking down Hecate, and although I was trying to hold off on making this sort of video until we actually see her set, it's been a little while, and in case if you guys are curious, Hecate is definitely a character who feels incomplete right now, but that's not for like really any particular reason aside from the fact that the set is just not out or released for her, so it feels a little bit difficult to play her right now. But with this, we'll break down some of my initial thoughts, impressions, what I've seen from Hecate and what I've had experience playing with Hecate. But without further ado though, let's get straight into it. So to start things off, Hecate is an Earth Warrior. She has pretty decent stat, and overall, if you want to think of her kind of simplistically, she is a warrior that's supposed to deal damage while also having a unique effect in the form of removing immortality and obviously also the like the revival aspect of the game at the same time. Now with this, she obviously has a few things. She has her skill 3, which grants her a self-attack buff, and when she uses this, she can basically deal a big nuke. This is really good, to be clear, but as you might have noticed here, there's a 6-turn cooldown. Now furthermore, this soul burn here obviously indicates that she's supposed to do a lot of damage, and in theory, if she's able to use this ability, ignore damage share, you know, self buff and one shot something, great, amazing, that's huge. The issue though is, at least right now, a 6-turn cooldown means that she is restricted to either being used alongside someone like Iseria, forced to be played with someone like Aram, or more realistically, she's waiting for the new set to come out. Now, next on the board though, we have S2. Now, for this, this is effectively what Briar has, or you know, some of the other characters in the game have, but now this doesn't just apply a you cannot revive effect, this also prevents you from having immortality. Great, this is huge, and in addition to this, when she attacks, she pens the target's defense by 100%, and she can't trigger a crit or, you know, heavy blow. Cool, fine, that's whatever. She is going to do a decent amount of damage, as people have notably and like rightfully so seen, but obviously a lot of her damage comes from her skill 3 and her ability to use it, as again, this is a free attack buff. With the soul burn, it's a free greater attack buff, and also of course a damage ignore share. Now her S1 is not also something that you should scoff, or really something that you can overlook. It does deal a decent amount of damage, truth be told, especially if you're using it on your turn, as this not only allows you to go into stealth, it's an AoE attack, and decreases her skill cooldowns by 2 turns. Now, all of this is pretty broken in concept, or sounds very strong, I should say, in theory, if you're able to just instantly, as soon as the game starts, one-shot something and you don't care. That sounds amazing, sounds ridiculous actually, in fact. However, the fact that she is balanced by, well, right now not having access to her S3 doesn't just balance her, it basically cripples her. So with this out of the way, we should actually talk about her build, as effectively at the moment she really isn't able to do much testing, and people aren't, rightfully so, really able to assess how she's supposed to be built or how she's going to be played. We can only theorize, of course, and even if the theory crafting is going to be right or correct, the reality is that the set isn't out, so people that are playing her are all kind of coping, which is why if we transition straight into her build, this is what I have on her right now. Now of course, she is on prot set. She is basically just being used at the moment to sit in front of like a young Senya or a character like her to effectively prevent anyone from reviving or having immortality. She does, I mean, act as a decent, honestly, guild war or, you know, arena offense unit at the moment. The reality though, however, is that if you're trying to build her at the 240, or first off, if you're trying to build her very fast to try and cycle through cooldowns, the reality is that, well, you should just wait until the new set is out. That's just the truth. Like, there's really no point in playing this character until the set is out. However, even with that, even with this not being the case, in terms of the build that you would see from her, it doesn't really make sense at the moment for her to effectively have anything but HP to try and buff up the team, because I'm gonna be honest, S1ing and waiting multiple turns when you know that there is a better playstyle for her on the way, just, you know, it's just pointless at the moment, at least. Now, I do want to say, in terms of things that are objectively going to stay the same once she actually comes out, if you don't end up using her as an S2 bot, her artifact, pretty good. This, in a lot of cases for how people have described it, is a semi power creeped version of Uberius Tooth. Now, of course, there are a couple of aspects to this. Uberius Tooth, of course, has technically less restrictions. Uberius Tooth is an after attack effect. It, obviously gives you the pop effect, which is cool, amazing. But something noteworthy about the new artifact that we have here is actually the fact that this not only gives you the pop afterwards, you don't need max rank of this artifact in order to guarantee the pop, which is something, or rather an effect of the Huayang artifact, which honestly is quite annoying and part of the reason why a lot of people were not a fan of it. Whenever I can scroll down to it, geez. There we go, my goodness. But yeah, this 100% chance to inflict, kind of annoying. Really like maybe one of the most annoying things I've ever had to bottle. Yes, unfortunately I did bottle it because Huayang was so OP back in the day. But in terms of this, obviously being able to be given the damage increase is also impactful. And honestly, if you're someone that wants to, or is a player of a lot of these characters like the the Amiki and characters like Hecate, obviously, or Hecate, however you pronounce her name, this artifact is pretty good, and this is probably going to stay on her. I could, in theory, obviously, especially right now, see wanting to, especially on prot set, use something like Proof of Valor, use something like Sepulchrum. Any of the more mitigation based artifacts I think would definitely be fine right now. But the reality is, once she actually ends up being more of a DPS build, we're going to use her artifact, and we're going to use similar-ish artifacts to her own, of course, to secure and deal damage. Now, another thing that I'd like to point out in terms of her build is actually the fact that, yes, obviously I've got a lot of speed on my prot set Hecate, which doesn't necessarily make sense. She should likely be in the slower, closer to 35k HP range. But honestly, that prot set gear is not available for me right now. If it were, I would probably slow down my build to, again, near or actually just base speed and be like 35,000 HP so that I can give a bit of mitigation to the team. But in terms of what her actual stat line will likely look like closer, once we actually have access to her set, we'll see that she probably closely stays to more of the 15,000 to 16,000 range in terms of HP, a closer to 13 to 1500 defense range, and about as much attack and speed as you can afford. Now, unfortunately, again, we aren't necessarily able to see what things get enabled, turned on, turned off with her at the state that she is right now. I could definitely see people initially starting out with their Hecate at a more slow, like 180 or slower range, especially if you're just playing her as a more standard or a less aggressive sort of player. But if you are someone that is trying to, take the turn, one-shot something, and then enable the rest of your team to go, things of this nature, I could definitely see her being in the 220 to 240 range, as she definitely has a lot of room for stats, especially with technically how safe she can feel when you have this S1 here. Now, I do also want to say that in terms of sets, not only does the 4-piece set kind of work well with her, the 2-piece set that's coming out in theory with the additional damage does also make sense with her, her additional damage proc and kind of the way that her entire kit is formatted. But of course, this is just what I have right now. Of course, I don't have her fully maxed out yet because, well, honestly, this character feels pretty unimpactful right now, outside of, again, just being used for the immortality block. Now, in terms of teams, this is basically a character that you could put alongside some of your favorite characters. Yes, you can use her with a character like Bride Senya. You can use her with someone like Bellion. You can use her with literally all of the mitigation characters in the game, realistically. You could also use her with Boss Arunca. You could use her with Genesis Raz. You can use her with effectively any character. By the way, apologies, some of these builds aren't Guild War right now, but effectively you can use this for literally any team lineup that you can think of or that you'd want, especially if you're going to play her quite slow. Young Senya ungeared for a second, apologies. But Young Senya obviously is one of the characters that I use currently the most with this Hecate character, and that's basically just because obviously like how strong Hecate is in terms of because of how strong Hecate is in terms of just being a, hey, I'm gonna do a bunch of fixed damage with my Young Senya and maybe another character who can do like a nuke or something, and then Hecate doesn't allow you to revive or have any immortality. And of course, Young Senya has a guaranteed turn if there's an extra turn on the enemy team, and then also, well, obviously, not not the extra turn. If you decide to use an AoE on her, she gets the extra turn, and then she can buff, allow you to take a turn, etc., which I think is quite powerful. All this to say, though, that especially right now, Hecate, I should say specifically, is more of like a dummy-proof sort of character for certain team compositions in Guild War. I do also find there to be a decent amount of value to her if you use her, or rather use Hecate specifically in Arena. But let's actually talk about Arena, because there are a number of locations where you can end up using a character like this. Now, the first thing that we should talk about, though, is that in terms of the kind of state of affair when it comes to Arena and stuff right now, it looks a little bit disturbing. It looks a little bit different. There's a lot of random stuff going on. Realistically, my bottom of champion reset doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to look from, but as I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably seen, especially at the top end when it comes to rankings and stuff, yes, there are a ton of characters like the Yulhas. There are a ton of characters like the Light of the Scales, or yeah, Light of the Scales, Lady of the Scales, Mercedes, both of which are obviously going to be very annoying when it comes to immortality and reviving. We also, of course, have characters that obviously revive themselves, including characters like Genesis Raz, which again is not necessarily the easiest sort of thing to deal with in Arena. And in theory, you would appreciate having someone like Hecate on a team, but as I'm probably, or as I think this is probably fair to say, despite there being a character like Hecate in the game, characters like the Genesis Raz and the Lady of the Scales are here for good reason, and that's very much because Hecate, at least right now, or Hecate, again, is not really impactful enough to necessarily justify picking her in each of these teams. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, I could definitely imagine a character like Hecate being impactful, especially for a team like this, which is fine. However, the reality is that there are cheeses, there are different compositions that will kind of force the full tank Hecate to feel more useless. And though it's not necessarily her fault, the reality is that if she isn't impactful enough to wipe off the immortality and revive characters from the game, there's likely a cheese that exists here. Again, I don't know exactly what these characters have on at the top end, but the assumption here is that, of course, characters are going to have, cheeses for the Lady of Scales. Maybe they're faster and then they one-shot you through some means, or maybe they have some sort of counter or some effect like this where they kill you before you're even able to kill them. All this to say, I do think that the value of her in something like Arena, probably at the low end, is fine, and that's why, especially where I am, you haven't seen too much of characters like Lady of the Scales. Whether or not they actually have access to it is one thing or another, but the reality, aside from that guy who is really cooking, by the way, with Arbiter Villager on defense, but the reality is that you're likely able to use someone like Hecate for a lot of Arena. And though for Guild War, this kind of takes a different turn, as this is where most of the time things are even goofier, as of course you have tons and tons and tons of different sort of cheeses. It's really difficult to say at the moment whether or not Hecate is anything more than a, hey, I really like playing this character, so I'm going to pick her sort of character. And well, this should tell you whatever the state of affairs is for Guild War right now, as that is a diabolical team that I'm fighting against. Okay, in any case, though, my initial thoughts on her for PvP are that, well, she's going to do exactly what you set out to do with her, right? You're going to absolutely blast or one-shot anything that you take if you are basically fighting against a team that is crutching on revives and immortality. This means that characters like the Spirit Iceline, this does also mean that characters like the Genesis Raz, things of this nature, are all going to struggle against Hecate. But again, if the team that you're fighting against is clever in any way, shape, or form, which again, because Hecate doesn't really have much value aside from this 1s2 passive, it does feel like that is a very easy way for Hecate to be exploited. If these characters have 40,000 HP and you're just trying to think to yourself, oh, well, my Ludwig or my Cleave character, my own Genesis Raz, can one-shot this character and be done with it. This isn't necessarily the case, especially if you don't pair her with some of the more OP characters, including the Yulha, and including some of the more OP current limited ML5s. Now, in terms of my build, you've seen it, and again, where I'm using her makes sense. But before we actually get into that, I did actually try to look a bit more into if this character could be used in any sort of PvE, and the reality is that maybe like maybe in some sort of like future rift, or like maybe some sort of advent cycle or rotation, I could see some value for her. But given that the revive is not necessarily something that can be used as easily, as far as I understand, they've removed the interaction where you were able to prevent certain enemies from reviving. As far as I understand, since that is removed, I don't think there's much room for her to be used in any sort of PvE. But again, you know, to hammer in again the reason why I have her on the build that I have her right now, it's again just to be a big meat wall. Again, I may be able to see some value in her being a full nuke character, or maybe being paired with something like a ROM, and you of course are able to see exactly how much damage her S3 does, especially if you are able to use a ROM, and especially if a ROM has a soul providing artifact. But again, the value of something like this and restricting her to someone like a ROM is pretty much an indicator that, well, you'd rather her just have her proper set and otherwise just give her a combat readiness push, give her someone like a Sea Phantom Politis, give her basically any character that doesn't strictly rely on being a ROM and having this like very niche kit. And otherwise, I think that what she has right now is decent to offer. Now, in terms of this, again, I apologize. This video is obviously made with a bit of a rose, or the opposite of a rose tinted lens, I guess. It's really difficult to be positive about what you would do on Hecate right now. I do think that once she has her set released, this is going to be a very powerful character. Again, you know, despite all of the current assumptions and POV of how she is in the game right now, the reality is that once she has access to her S3, this is a pretty generalistic kit. To be frank, again, a nuke one shot, great, amazing. The ability to remove immortality and revive, great, amazing. Being able to pen defense, great, amazing. And furthermore, again, if you were curious about her survivability, yes, having a stealth on a warrior character who's going to be quite tanky is not really, you know, something that you can scoff at or something that you could really ignore. Again, I think as it stands right now, in terms of like the survivability or tankiness of a character like Hecate, though it's obviously a little bit different, these characters that are tankier, bulkier, that go into stealth and can't die if you accidentally unstealth them for one turn, are not really to be underestimated. Because again, we even have characters like the ML Shu, who again, when she has like this high amount of HP, is able to go or take many turns, can't die just from one hit, and they're able to re-enter back into stealth. This is quite annoying to deal with, especially in the right team lineup. Now again, the main thing for Urban Shadow Shu is that, well, this character has a bit of limitation, as she's primarily supposed to be used against injury characters or against very high health characters. The same cannot be said with Hecate, where effectively, if the enemy can revive, if the enemy has immortality, or if you just need to one-shot someone and need a general, I guess, like countered by fire, even if you're countered by fire, this character could probably one-shot or survive against fire and kind of kill fire units while being stealth and just AoEing her enemies. If this is the sort of generalistic or damage dealer that you're looking for, I think Hecate is going to be good. And again, I've made a video talking about how good Hecate is, even after the nerf, which again is more in line with being balanced and balancing the game. But again, I don't want this video to come off as, oh my gosh, like Hecate is so bad, she has nothing. And obviously the, you know, the elephant in the room is that, well, she's going to be good. So I do want to point out that she does have very positive aspects or features to her right now, which is that the second that she's released, yes, she's going to one-shot something. Yes, she has, at least at the moment, decent survivability. Yes, she can actually even use the Bastion of Hope that we saw before. And if you want to run an ER hybrid where, yeah, you have 4,000 attack and or maybe you give up some attack for ER, yes, this is going to be very annoying to deal with as someone that just keeps hitting you and AoE splashing you from, you know, from the, like, basically the shadows. If this is a character that you end up feeling that you need for either Guild War, you want to test with, or play in Arena, this is going to be a good character. There is value to a character like this, especially from a more, I want to just flex with the character, and sometimes I can beat anything or beat a comp with anything because I have really OP teammates on it. Like, this is one of those characters that is going to be very effective for something like that, and also good as a meta character in general, which I think is doubly effective and even more in her favor. In any case though, guys, thanks again for watching. Of course, I think Hecate is going to be very good. I would I apologize. I would show you guys my guild war, but as you guys saw, I've seen the teams that I'm fighting currently, at least right now, are a little bit goofy, and honestly they wouldn't be any better of an indicator of what's going on. And I guess, I don't know, seeing Ludwig or other characters, I don't know, characters like the Genesis Roz and so one shot the entire team doesn't really seem worthwhile. I mean, I guess it's dopamine, but you know what I mean. It's effectively a standing wall. Think Boss of Runka showcase, which is also kind of goofy, especially since mine's on prot set. But at least in Boss of Runka's, you know, Boss of Runka's defense, she could have been built counter. Anyways, enough rambling. Thanks again for watching though, guys. These are my initial impressions and my, basically at this point, like a couple weeks worth of testing of Hecate, or more like a week. But in any case, thanks again for watching though, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. Hopefully when Hecate comes out, I can give an update, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.